Summer sunlight in Newport filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Mary's by the Sea, scattering across the white-tiled floor in vibrant, dancing ribbons. The atmosphere inside the small seaside chapel was thick with excitement. Soft whispers from guests, gentle laughter, eager eyes fixed on the grand doors where the bride would soon appear. At the altar, Graham Lennox stood tall in his elegant black suit. At 38, after 2 years living in the shadow of widowhood, he finally believed he had touched happiness again. A smile, both anxious and radiant, spread across his lips, as if the slightest breeze could scatter the emotions swelling inside him. "You look amazing, Dad," 8-year-old Theo Lennox whispered. His small fingers toyed with the velvet ring pillow, his neatly combed brown curls and tiny suit perfectly mirroring his father's. But while Graham glowed with joy, Theo's brown eyes brimmed with worry. Graham glanced down at his son and winked reassuringly. "Thanks, buddy. I'm the lucky one, having such an incredible ring-bearer." He placed a gentle hand on Theo's head, completely unaware of the tension carved into the boy's young face. Then the first notes of the wedding march echoed. The congregation rose as one, every gaze swinging toward the entrance. Everyone waited breathlessly for the bride's arrival. Everyone. Except Theo. The boy's eyes remained locked on his father. His fingers tightened around the ring pillow until his knuckles turned white. The doors opened slowly, and Autumn Harper appeared. She looked as though she had stepped out of a perfect bridal painting. A white lace gown hugging her figure, silk train fluttering softly in the ocean breeze. Her golden hair cascaded like a waterfall over her shoulders, and her blue eyes shimmered with something unreadable. Autumn walked down the aisle in steady steps, each one prompting a soft sigh of admiration from the pews. "You look stunning," Graham breathed when she reached him. She smiled, her whisper as soft as waves brushing over sand. "I can't wait to start our new life together." Reverend Peterson, a silver-haired minister with a kind face, began the ceremony. His measured voice filled the warm space, but to Theo, every line, every passing second felt like a needle piercing his chest. He shifted from foot to foot, eyes darting between his father and Autumn. To adults watching, he simply seemed nervous for the wedding. But the truth was deeper, darker, far more urgent. Standing there, Theo felt himself pulled back into memories from the past months. Back to the first day Dad brought her home, to the things he'd seen, heard, known. And with every hair on his head, every beat of his young heart, Theo understood one thing. He could not let this wedding happen. He could not let that woman destroy their lives, destroy Dad. But what could an 8-year-old do? How could he make every adult in this church believe the truth, when even his father, the person he loved and trusted most, didn't believe him? Reverend Peterson paused and spoke the traditional words. "If anyone has a just cause why this couple may not lawfully be joined in marriage, speak now, or forever hold your peace." Silence fell. This was Theo's chance, his only moment. But fear clamped around his chest. What if he was wrong? What if no one believed him? What if he ruined his father's happiest day? All because of a child's fear. Reverend Peterson nodded, preparing to continue. Theo's heart pounded so hard it felt as if it would tear through his ribs. Now or never. "Stop!" The shout burst out before he could think. "Stop this wedding!" The entire chapel froze. And before we continue, if you're following this story and finding it gripping, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the videos I release every day. It truly helps me keep telling more stories for you. But what could drive an 8-year-old boy to this point? What pushed him to the brink of tearing apart what was supposed to be his father's happiest moment? To understand that, we have to go back to last fall, to where everything truly began. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in Newport, when the maple leaves had turned shades of red and shimmering gold, and the breath of the ocean carried a hint of the early winter creeping in. Graham picked Theo up from Newport Harbor Elementary, his face glowing with a kind of excitement Theo hadn't seen since his mother was still alive. "Son, there's someone special I want you to meet," Graham said, his voice nearly bubbling as they drove home. The Lennox Lighthouse Cottage, their small, charming house, sat just a few minutes' walk from Old Point Judith Lighthouse. Theo's stomach tightened with a mix of curiosity and unease. After his mother died from cancer 2 years earlier, it had been just the two of them. They had built their own little routines: Saturday morning pancakes, evening walks along the cliff walk, and bedtime stories on the old sofa his mother had loved. The thought of someone new slipping into those sacred spaces made Theo unsure if he was ready. When they reached home, a woman was waiting on the porch. Her blonde hair caught the afternoon sunlight, and when she smiled, Theo saw his father's eyes light up in a way that made the boy's chest tighten. "Theo, this is Autumn," Graham introduced, pride warming his voice. She's become very important to me, and I hope she'll be important to you, too." Autumn knelt down to Theo's eye level, her blue eyes gleaming like the early winter sea. "It's so nice to finally meet you, Theo," she said gently. "Your dad talks about you all the time." In that moment, Theo felt a flicker of hope. Maybe things would be okay. Maybe. But as the weeks passed, that flicker slowly dimmed. Theo began noticing strange things. Autumn was completely different when his father wasn't around. The warm smiles vanished, replaced by a coldness, stiff, sharp, and unsettling. One evening was etched especially deep into Theo's memory. Graham had to work late at the architecture firm, and Autumn was put in charge of watching Theo. While they sat at the dinner table, Theo tried to make conversation. "Miss Autumn, do you like space? We're learning about the solar system at school and—" "Theo." Autumn cut him off, her voice as sharp as a blade, eyes fixed on her phone. "I'm busy. Eat. Quiet." Theo froze, shrinking into his chair. He pushed food around on his plate, the silence between them heavy enough to choke on. But when Graham was present, everything shifted colors again. Autumn asked Theo about his day, laughed at his silly stories, and even patted his head in moments that looked almost affectionate. But Theo could feel the falseness in her smile, could see the tension flickering beneath those perfect blue eyes. While Theo grew increasingly uneasy, Graham was happier than he'd been at any point since his wife died. He practically floated around the house, humming old tunes, even breaking into sudden dance steps that should have embarrassed Theo, if they weren't so delightfully goofy. "Isn't Autumn wonderful?" Graham often asked, his eyes shining. "We're so lucky to have her in our lives, aren't we, buddy?" Theo would nod, forcing a smile. He didn't have the heart to shatter the joy his father had finally rediscovered. But deep inside, the 8-year-old boy felt only emptiness, and a growing, gnawing confusion. As the weeks turned into months, Autumn's true nature slowly revealed itself to Theo. She began making clipped, cutting remarks, only when Graham wasn't around. "Oh, Theo," she sighed, eyeing the mess he made while working on a school project. "You're really difficult to manage. I don't understand how your dad puts up with it." Or when he excitedly showed her a good test score. "Very nice, sweetheart. But you know, there's always room for improvement." Each comment felt like a small carving into Theo's self-worth, making him feel like a burden in the very home he had grown up in. He began withdrawing, spending more time in his room, avoiding shared spaces, afraid of catching Autumn's scrutinizing stare. Then, about 3 months before the wedding, something happened. Something Theo could never erase from his memory. It was a Saturday afternoon. Graham had gone out to run errands, leaving Theo and Autumn alone in the house. He was sitting in the living room, watching cartoons and sipping his juice when Autumn walked in. "Turn that off," she snapped, pointing sharply at the TV. "Too loud. I'm trying to work." Theo flinched and fumbled with the remote. In his hurry, his elbow knocked over his juice. Liquid spilled across the coffee table and seeped into the carpet. "I'm sorry," Theo yelped, scrambling for napkins. "I didn't mean—" But before he could do anything, Autumn was already storming toward him. Her fingers clamped around his arm as she yanked him away from the mess. "Look at what you've done," she hissed, her face twisted with anger. "Such a clumsy, careless child." Theo winced from the pain, tears springing to his eyes. "I'm sorry. I'll clean it. I promise." Autumn's eyes narrowed, sharp as blades. "You'd better," she growled. "And if you open your mouth and tell your father, you will regret it deeply. Understand?" Theo nodded frantically, his heart pounding. The moment she released him, he rushed to clean up the spill, his hands trembling the entire time. That evening, when Graham returned home, Autumn greeted him with a bright smile and a kiss as sweet as sugar. "You're finally back, darling," she said in a tender voice. From the staircase, Theo stood quietly in the shadows watching them. He rubbed the sore spot on his arm where Autumn's fingers had dug in. His eyes dropped, and a deep loneliness seeped into every breath he took, heavier than anything he had ever felt before. As the wedding day drew closer, Theo found himself struggling under the weight of a secret he didn't dare speak aloud. He wanted, desperately wanted, to tell his father what Autumn was truly like. But fear held him back. What if Dad didn't believe him? What if telling the truth only made Autumn angrier? And even worse. One evening, about a month before the wedding, Theo finally gathered enough courage to approach his father. Graham was sitting in his study, reviewing some documents, when Theo gently knocked on the door. "Come in, son," Graham called with a warm smile. "What's going on?" Theo stepped inside, his fingers twisting the hem of his shirt. "Dad," he said slowly, "can I talk to you about something?" Graham immediately set his papers aside and gave Theo his full attention. "Of course, you can tell me anything. What is it?" Theo took a deep breath, then blurted out, "It's about Miss Autumn. I don't think she likes me." Graham's brows furrowed. "What do you mean, Theo? Autumn adores you." "No, Dad, she doesn't." Theo spoke quickly, as if afraid he'd lose the nerve if he slowed down. "When you're not there, she's different. She ignores me, and sometimes she says things—" Hold on. Slow down." Graham lifted a hand to stop him. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Theo, I know this is a big change for you. It's normal to feel unsure. But I promise you, Autumn cares about you a lot." "But Dad—" Theo tried again. "No buts, son," Graham said firmly. "Autumn is going to be your stepmother. I need you to give her a chance. She's trying her best, just like we are. Okay?" Theo's shoulders collapsed, as if someone had pulled the entire world out from under him. "Yes, Dad," he whispered, then turned away. "Hey," Graham called after him gently. "I love you. Everything's going to be fine." But as Theo closed the door behind him, despair washed over him. Dad, the person he trusted more than anyone, hadn't believed him. Or worse, didn't want to believe. From that day on, Theo stopped trying to tell the truth. He withdrew, becoming quieter, smaller, and more timid. Graham, swept up in the whirlwind of wedding preparations and the glow of newfound happiness, didn't notice the change in his son. He assumed Theo's silence was shyness, or just a phase, never imagining the storm building inside the boy. Autumn, on the other hand, seemed to revel in her victory. With Graham oblivious, and Theo too afraid to speak up again, she grew bolder, more reckless and more cruel in her mistreatment. One afternoon, Theo accidentally overheard Autumn talking to her friend, Brooke. "You're really something," Brooke scoffed with a laugh. "Playing mom to someone else's kid? Couldn't be me." Theo froze in the hallway, his heart stopping cold. Autumn responded in a voice so sweet it sounded fake. "Oh, it's not that bad. Theo, well, he's part of the package, right? If you want the good, you have to put up with the bad." Brooke burst out laughing. "You're a saint. If I were you, I'd have sent him to boarding school ages ago." Theo didn't wait to hear more. He stepped back silently, then ran to his room and shut the door.